I'm Amelia Grant, 35, and on the night my family tried to turn me into their personal bank, I didn't shout, I didn't plead. I breathed in, felt the cold glass of the wine against my palm, and I smiled. Because I already had a plan. They thought fairy lights would soften me, that carols and cranberry sauce would keep me polite and pliable. They thought a crowded room would shame me into paying for a wedding I didn't choose, a honeymoon I wouldn't take, a dress I'd never wear. They thought wrong. // 2 months before Christmas, Canterbury smelled like damp leaves and wood smoke, the kind of weather that presses memories into you like thumbprints. I'd built a life that fit me, not flashy, not loud, a tidy flat above an old bookshop, a little car that starts without complaint, a job in brand strategy that pays the bills and leaves a sliver of quiet for myself. I kept basil on the sill because something green helps you forgive the grey. Most nights I cooked for one and didn't apologize for the portions. Most mornings I ran past the cathedral while the city yawned awake. It wasn't a novel, but it was mine. Apparently, that made it available. The message came from my sister, Celia, sweetened like poison with honey. Mills, love, the numbers are tight. Reception, dress, Sorrento for the honeymoon, the works. You've got savings, no kids, no mortgage. 20,000 should do. You're the only one who can make this day perfect. I replayed it twice, because disasters like to introduce themselves politely. I typed back, no. I won't fund your wedding. Sent. Blue ticks. Then the silence, her favorite prelude to a storm. A week later I carried a box of tatty tinsel into Mum and Dad's semi on St. Martin's. Cinnamon candles fighting last Sunday's roast. I climbed the narrow stairs and stopped when Dad's voice floated up from the lounge, low and certain. Christmas Eve dinner. She won't say no in front of everyone. Celia's laugh, brittle and bright. She'll pay after pudding. Mum's quiet, complicit murmur. The baubles in my hands suddenly felt heavy as blame. I set the box down, smiled through the doorway, lied about an email, and drove home through mist that made the world feel borderless. On my kitchen table, under the faithful basil, I made a list of ropes that still linked me to them. An old joint account I'd opened in a weak moment when Celia's freelance jobs were about to pick up, an automatic debit for her phone because work calls were life or death. A birthday standing order I'd never found the spine to pause. A loyal daughter or a tame resource, take your pick. I opened my laptop and cut every rope I could find. Close account. Cancel transfer. Change bank. The clicks were louder than carols. Then I wrote a letter. Not rage. Not poetry. A clean paragraph built like a door that locks. I will not pay for your wedding. I will not be pressured in public or in private. If you continue to harass me, I will disengage and seek legal protection. I wish you happiness. I'm stepping out of this. Love, Amelia. I printed it on heavy paper because weight matters. I slid it into an envelope and tucked it into my handbag. I slept like someone who'd moved her valuables out of a leaky cellar. December busied itself with pretending. Office secret Santa that reeked of cinnamon soap. Meetings about brand pillars that matter to no one outside the room. I practiced lines in my head like an actress who knows opening night will involve hecklers. Soft voice, steady breath, don't let them turn your no into a debate. On the 15th, another message from Celia. Can we talk? Don't be dramatic. I didn't reply. On the 17th, Mum sent a photo of fairy lights strung across the conservatory. Your dad did these himself as if illumination could fix intention. On the 20th, Dad rang. We do for family, love. You'll see that one day. I let it go to voicemail and listened once, not twice. Minihook 1. He said we do for family like a receipt, not a promise. Christmas Eve. The table in Mum's dining room bowed under turkey and trimmings, under expectations and old habits. Relatives filled chairs the way fog fills fields, everywhere, quiet, inescapable. Celia flashed her ring. Her fiancé, Troy, grinned like a man who had never read a bill in full. Dad carved, Mum fussed, I passed gravy, and the room buzzed with the false warmth of people who've decided the ending and are simply waiting for the page to turn. Dessert arrived like a drum roll. Trifle. Custard trembled in glass bowls. Conversations softened. My heartbeat didn't. I stood. I have something to say. The words steadied me as I took the envelope from my bag. I placed it in front of Celia. Please read. She smirked, then skimmed, then stained. Dad leaned in, grabbed it, and color left his face like a tide. What is this? Mum's spoon clinked against her plate, a cousin pretended to check a napkin, anything to be elsewhere. I met my father's eyes. It's a boundary. Celia's voice went knife-thin. You're selfish. Dad added salt, after all we've done for you. Mum whispered, almost hopeful, let's not do this here. I stayed standing. I'm not your bank. I'm not paying for a wedding, a dress, a honeymoon, or the works. I've loved you and helped you, and I'm finished being a Plan B purse. If the messages continue, I'll speak to a solicitor. A silence opened like a trapdoor. Then the chorus, shame, duty, that weary accusation ungrateful. I put on my coat without hurry. I'll see myself out. Celia hissed, you'll regret this. I paused at the hall, my fingers brushing the fairy light switch. I already did. And I stepped into the crisp night that felt more honest than any candlelit dining room. /////. Boxing Day brought the digital avalanche. Celia posted a public lament on Facebook. Some people care more about money than family. My own sister would rather let my wedding fall apart than help. Heartbroken. Stacked like pebbles on a grave. Comments from strangers wrote my character in sentences paired of context. Heartless, cold, career girl with a stone for a heart. Fiona from Mum's choir, the town crier in a charity cardigan, repeated it at the baker's and the butcher. In the greengrocer I heard it land. That's her. I kept my head up, bought apples, paid cash, and said a cheerful cheers that tasted of iron. Mini-hook 2. Gossip is a smoke machine. It fills the room so you can't see who's lighting the match. 3 days later, a thick envelope arrived, a draft family support agreement. 30 pages of dressed-up entitlement with my name spelled correctly only on the signature line, demanding I deposit £20,000 by the end of January as already agreed, then £25,000 a year into a family fund for shared well-being. The signatures looked rehearsed, not written. My father's usual scrawl was suddenly tidy as a check. Celia's loops were neat like a girl caught practicing someone else's name. My stomach went cold. This wasn't guilt, it was an attempt at fraud in its Sunday best. The next morning, frost silvered the railings as I pushed through the door of a small firm off Castle Street. The solicitor, Ms. Hatherley, had eyes that said she'd seen worse and would see me through this. I slid the agreement across her desk. She read, page turned, read again. It's rubbish, she said, precise, British. Not binding. Full of holes. If they pressure you, we'll apply for a non-molestation order. I let the words settle. Legal facts are like solid chairs when the floor's been taught to tilt. We'll also note the attempted misrepresentation, she added, tapping a paragraph. Keep every message, print everything. Do not engage. I walked out into clean winter light feeling smaller and stronger all at once. Mini-hook 3. When you speak to someone whose job is reality, the ghosts sit down. I decided to move. Not a dramatic exile, a choice. There was an opening with our Bristol team for someone who could herd clients and budgets while still making good work. I asked my manager, Nora, and she didn't blink. We'd be lucky to have you there. I packed my flat in neat boxes labeled not with rooms but with moods: kitchen, quiet mornings, books, rainy evenings. I watered the basil, whispered, "Try your best," and drove west with the boot full and the radio low. Canterbury shrank in the mirror to something manageable, like a small scar you can name without wincing. Bristol introduced herself with a hill that nearly killed my clutch and a bakery that made me believe in butter again. My new place had a long window that swallowed sunset and a sliver view of the harbour if you leaned left. On the first night I put the basil on the sill like a friend who'd come through something with me. I slept on a mattress on the floor and woke feeling unobserved. At work, I found a team that laughed with its whole faces. Nora gave me a campaign that mattered and the authority to say no without apology. I changed my number and let only the kind people in. For a while, the silence was the sort that heals. Then the rumor arrived. "Pop into HR when you're free," Nora wrote, and my ribs tightened. The HR manager, Leon, sat kind with a folder in front of him. "We received an anonymous email claiming you misrepresented your experience," he said, careful, neutral. I didn't shake. I handed over my records, performance reviews from Canterbury, the transfer email thread, project decks with my fingerprints all over them. "I have an estranged family member attempting to cause trouble," I said, not theatrical, just true. A week later Leon called me back in. "All cleared," he smiled. The email came from a cafe Wi-Fi in Canterbury. Anonymous, but flimsy. He paused. "We're glad you're here." I thanked him and walked to the water, stood on the narrow plank of a late afternoon, and watched a gull refuse the wind. Mini-hook 4. Once you learn to identify the shape of an attack, it becomes boring. 6 months of Bristol knitted themselves into something warm. Weekends meant the suspension bridge at dusk and the smugness of a perfectly poached egg. I bought a second basil because the first had outgrown its pot and audacity deserves company. I made friends who answered, "Are you free?" with "For you, yes." The quiet swelled with detail, a neighbor's laugh through the wall, the scrape of my chair, the hum of the fridge at midnight when you're doing fine. Then Flora, my cousin, professional peacemaker with the softest hands, texted, "Auntie and Uncle want to talk. They want to make things right." I drove to Canterbury on a Saturday that smelled like rain before it decided. Mum opened the door with a smile that nearly convinced me. Dad had a notebook on the table, numbers in columns like a hymn. Celia sat with her arms folded into a victory she hadn't won yet. Flora poured tea and tried to be the bridge while all the planks creaked. "We just want the family to be whole again," she began, voice like a plaster on a fracture. Dad slid the notebook towards me. "We're getting older," he said, practiced. "We need help with costs, groceries, rent, utilities, maybe a new car." Celia leaned forward, eyes bright with someone else's money. "You're doing well in Bristol. A couple of $1,000 a month is fair." I looked at the list. I counted the lines where miscellaneous disguises endless. I pushed it back. "No," I said. "It is amazing how one syllable can hold a house." Dad reddened. "After everything," Mum interrupted, voice thin. "Can't we talk?" She had always been so good at asking for less than she meant. I turned to her. "Let's talk," I said, and for once I wanted to. We took 2 mugs into the garden where the fairy lights drooped like tired promises. She wrapped her cardigan around herself like defense. "You could help a little," she whispered. "The way people plead for the old world." "I helped for years," I said. "I paid when you were short, I drove when you were stranded, I answered when the night rang. You taught me that love is provision. I learned it too well." She stared at the basil on the windowsill, My basil, planted here once when I still brought seedlings to this house. Your sister isn't you, she said, small. She needs more. She needs to learn that no is a person's last guardrail, I replied. The air between us filled with things neither of us could unsay. Why didn't you stop, Dad? I asked, softer than the question deserved. She blinked. I wanted us to be one piece, she said. Sometimes I thought if I kept the table nice and the lights pretty, the rest would behave. I set my mug down. Pretty tables don't change the bill. She swallowed. I miss you. I closed my eyes. Then meet me where I live now, I said. Where love isn't an invoice. We sat with the fairy lights in daylight, which is when they look most like string. She didn't promise anything. Neither did I. Inside, Celia stood, her words already sharpened. You owe us, she said. You're heartless. I looked at my mother, not Celia. I'm going now, I said. Mum nodded, not approval, not defiance, an acknowledgement that I exist outside the family plan. Dad muttered something about ingratitude. Celia smirked in a way I used to believe was power. I left through the hall where my height marks still live under a smear of paint. I didn't touch the fairy lights switch this time. I just walked out. /////. The order came through 2 weeks later, cold black print with my name and Celia's and a clear boundary the law would help me keep. Non-molestation. Words that sound Victorian but feel modern as breath. The first night after, I slept with the window open and the city hummed like a lullaby. Nora took me for a late breakfast and we drank coffee like medicine. You look taller, she said. I am, I said, and meant it. Time did what it does, smeared, then stacked. Work promoted me because I was already doing the job. I learned to like Sundays. I learned to cook the kind of food that tastes like tomorrow will be manageable. I learned a new habit. When my phone pinged with an unknown number, I did not answer. I bought a small lamp that makes evenings kind. I walked the harbour with friends who know how to talk without extracting. The basil flowered and I pinched it back, laughing at myself for becoming the sort of woman who prunes and thinks it's a metaphor. Maybe it is. A year on, a mutual friend texted me that Celia had been dismissed from her marketing agency after HR traced anonymous complaints she'd filed against colleagues. The consequences had finally learned her address. I felt no triumph, just a quiet end to a noisy threat. News filtered in that my parents had sold the car and moved to a smaller flat on the edge of town. I wished them steadiness. I did not send money. That combination is its own kind of adulthood. What I know now, I offer to anyone standing under fairy lights that feel like handcuffs. Family is not a bill with your surname at the top. Love is not measured in pounds or in proof of obedience. Boundaries are not cruelty, they are the fence that keeps resentment from eating your garden alive. People who call you selfish for saying no are telling you who benefited when you didn't have one. Believe them. Document everything. Move your money before you announce your decision. Speak to a professional. Let someone whose job is reality stabilize your ground. Say one clear sentence at the table and leave before the play begins. The argument you refuse is often the freedom you'll keep. And keep something green in the window. Not because plants are magic, but because you deserve evidence that life grows where you water it. When I pinch the basil now, the kitchen smells like a promise I made to myself and kept. When I see Christmas lights in some cafe window, I feel neither trapped nor tender, just informed. Pretty doesn't change the bill. People do, or don't. Do I miss them? Some days. Memory edits the footage and leaves the soft parts in. I remember Mum and I ruining a Christmas pudding and eating the wreckage with custard, laughing like thieves. I remember Dad teaching me to change a tire in the rain, his hand steady on mine. I remember Celia before she learned that attention could be collected like tax. Then I remember the envelope, the forged agreement, the notebook of costs that tried to draft my future without my consent. I put the reel down. I make pasta. I text a friend. I water the basil. Healing is small and ordinary and astonishing, all at once. If you are standing on your own threshold now, hearing your name used as a budget line, feeling your kindness counted like coins, listen, you're allowed to write a letter that frees you. You're allowed to place it on a table dressed for pressure and walk away with your spine intact. You're allowed to move cities, to change your number, to become boring to the people who need your drama to feel alive. You are not selfish for defending your peace. You are not cruel for refusing the role they cast you in. You are a person with a life that can be tended like a plant and lit like a room you actually want to sit in. Choose the hill that leaves you breathless in the good way. Choose the harbour that looks different every day and belongs to no one. Choose the friends who don't invoice their affection. Choose the lamp. Choose the quiet. Choose yourself. It isn't abandonment. It's arrival. / Thank you for listening to my story. If it reached you at the right time, I'm glad. Tell me where you are, the city you're in and the time on your screen, because I still marvel at how far a voice can travel when it finally refuses to apologize. And if you've ever had to draw a line with the people who share your last name, what did your first no sound like? And how did you hold it when the room got loud?